Saraya has revealed who will be her tag team partner next week on AEW Dynamite in Los Angeles. However, there are now conflicting reports on whether or not Mercedes Mone will head to All Elite Wrestling. One saying she will be revealed as Saraya's tag team partner next week. However, others, including Dave Meltzer, are saying that is not the case. We've got the very latest details on that. Plus, speaking of Mercedes, officially her first New Japan Pro Wrestling match has now been announced against Kairi for the IWGP Women's Championship. The Young Bucks are in negotiations to extend their AEW contracts. Darby Allin wins the TNT Championship last night on the new look version of Dynamite. MJF versus Bryan Danielson has been announced for AEW Revolution for the World Championship in a 60-minute Iron Man match. The Acclaimed retained the tag team titles last night on Dynamite in quite controversial circumstances. Hangman Page versus Jon Moxley has been announced for next week's big show in LA. Ricky Starks defeats Chris Jericho but then is attacked by the Jericho Appreciation Society. Kenny Omega teams up for the first time with Kazuchika Okada in New Japan Pro Wrestling today, and have a look at the new Dynamite stage. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As you can see from that intro, there is plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. Let's get straight into it and let's continue talking about Mercedes Mone, the former Sasha Banks in WWE. We know she's wrestling for New Japan Pro Wrestling, but her AEW status is really up in the air right now, and it's going in a direction that some people didn't expect, because we're seeing major conflicts in reporting about the possible status of the former WWE Women's Champion going to All Elite Wrestling. So, Wednesday night was a bit of a roller coaster if you're a Sasha Banks, Mercedes Mone fan. Something that was already expected seemingly came into focus, as for the first time it was definitively reported who will be Saraya's mystery partner against Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker on the January 11th episode of AEW Dynamite from the Kia Forum in Inglewood, California. Naturally, that would be the person that everybody expected, especially after she debuted for New Japan Pro Wrestling at Wrestle Kingdom earlier on in the day, that being Mercedes Mone, the former Sasha Banks. However, things have changed in the last few hours, because later on in the day on AEW Dynamite on TBS, despite hints to that effect in a Britt Baker promo, Saraya explicitly revealed that her tag team partner will be, drumroll please, Toni Storm. Saying this, and this is where it gets interesting. So, DAZN's Stephen Mulhausen tweeted out, quote, Mercedes Venado will be Saraya's partner next week in AEW Dynamite in LA against Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. Again, that was reported by DAZN's Stephen Mulhausen, citing, quote, sources in a tweet minutes before the start of the January 4 edition of Dynamite, starting a confusing couple of hours. Couldn't announce or make a major hint due to her still being under contract to WWE until the beginning of 2023, he also said in a follow-up post. However, the interview that then aired on AEW Dynamite has caused a lot of confusion. Mulhausen's report was followed less than 90 minutes later by a backstage interview with Baker and Hayter on Dynamite, where Baker referred to herself as, quote, the boss, Mone's nickname in WWE, while hyping the big tag team match for the Inglewood show. Baker's words weren't even the first overt hints of the day. At Wrestle Kingdom, the backstage press conference after the show, Mone indicated that Japan is just the first stop on her, quote, world domination tour. However, about 3/4 of the way into Dynamite on TBS, in another pre-recorded backstage interview conducted by Renee Paquette, Saraya told Toni Storm and Hikaru Shida that Storm would be her partner next week. Both Shida and, to a lesser extent, Paquette played it as if they were both confused and dismayed by the announcement, suggesting that there is more to the storyline beneath the surface. As for Mone, she made her New Japan Pro Wrestling and effectively sister promotion Stardom debut earlier on Wednesday, by attacking and challenging IWGP Women's Champion Kairi, the former Kairi Sane in WWE, after she successfully defended her title against Tam Nakano. With New Japan being a close partner of AEW, the initial reporting of the Mone deal naturally led to speculation that she would be the mystery partner, a match that was already announced before the news broke. However, and again, however, things have kind of altered in the last few hours because now Dave Meltzer is reporting that Mercedes Mone is not going to be heading to AEW. This is where it gets really interesting. Mercedes Mone, formerly known as Sasha Banks in WWE, is reportedly not on her way to All Elite Wrestling, despite that being what many fans were expecting to happen. Now, as I mentioned, Mercedes made her return to wrestling this week at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Tokyo Dome show, Wrestle Kingdom 17. She made an appearance at the show. She confronted current IWGP Women's Champion Kairi. She then attacked Kairi, picked up the mic and made it clear she intends to win the title from her, also claiming that she is the CEO of the New Japan and Stardom Women's divisions. Not long after the show, the match was made official. We'll talk about that in just a second. However, ever since Mercedes walked out of WWE last year, there has been plenty of speculation that she would be headed to AEW. That speculation ramped up last month when AEW booked that tag team match of Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter versus Saraya and a mystery partner in LA on the January 11th episode of Dynamite. Many fans, of course, assuming Mercedes will be the mystery partner. It had also been reported, as I mentioned, by his own Stephen Mulhausen that Mercedes will be Saraya's partner, and AEW just couldn't make an announcement or make a major hint due to the fact she was still under contract to WWE until the beginning of this year. But again, with the segment last night on Dynamite, that's leading to a lot of people thinking, what is going on? Now, there is some doubt from fans about this and about the selection of Toni Storm. Many fans just thinking this is just a swerve and it will still lead eventually to Mercedes' debut. However, on the most recent episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer discussed the situation, saying that she actually is not the partner, noting that he thinks she doesn't want to make the long-term commitment, saying, quote, "I was told a bunch of stuff or so, and it was very clear on the show tonight, she, Mercedes Mone, is not in Los Angeles. She is not coming to AEW. I don't think she wants to make that commitment because if she goes to AEW, it's a long-term commitment." According to previous other reports, people in AEW have been very quiet when asked about Mercedes Mone coming in, but according to Meltzer, people within AEW have actually made denials, including people in the match itself. Quote, "I've heard denials from AEW people in the match. They know it was really screwed because that's why they had to announce someone this week, because they knew it was really screwed because everybody was thinking it was her, but it wasn't her." Meltzer would also go on to add that people in WWE are under the belief that she will not wrestle for AEW and that she will come back to WWE at some point. Quote, "Anything's possible. I also know from WWE that they are very strongly under the impression that she will not wrestle for AEW. They think that she's coming back at some point. She'll get this out of her system. She'll do her New Japan matches because, you know, she's only contracted for a couple of matches and then come back. But if she's going to AEW, she's got to sign for 3 years minimum because why even bother if she's going to go right back? For AEW, it would be really stupid to put her on TV if she's going to go back in 6 months. And I don't know if she wants to make that commitment that she can't go back, which again, with New Japan for a short-term deal for just a couple of dates, yes, she can go back at the end of the deal, but when it comes to an AEW deal for a couple of years, she can't go back for a couple of years. Again, that's the impression, you know, but again, what will happen? I just know that everyone over in Japan and everybody was just saying this was a New Japan deal and not an AEW deal. Of course, we'll have to wait and see if she shows up next Wednesday on Dynamite. The Toni Storm announcement could just be a big swerve, and that it's also entirely possible she could come in at a later date. A return to WWE at this point would be slightly surprising, but definitely not out of the question, it seems. Now, again, when it comes to her New Japan Pro Wrestling future, we do know when she's going to make her in-ring debut for the promotion. That is at the Battle in the Valley event that has now been officially announced. Battle in the Valley, February 18, the San Jose Civic Center, the IWGP Women's Championship. Kairi will defend against Mercedes Varnado, and there's a very high chance, or Mercedes Mone rather, and there's a very high chance that Mercedes Mone could win the championship in that match. As far as the news about her not coming into AEW, a lot of that does seem very, very speculative. From Dave Meltzer, when he says, "Oh, there's people in the match that are out openly denying it to me," well, why would they tell him? Why would they say, yes, it's her, just for you to go out there and spoil it? If AEW are actively trying to suggest to people it's not her as a red herring, why would they then tell Dave Meltzer off the record, oh, it is her, just for him to leak it out? They want to surprise people. So I think despite what Meltzer is saying there, I think that speculation on his part, Stephen Mulhausen was very, very strong in him saying, no, it's going to be her. Now, again, the announcement last night did take people by surprise, and it could be AEW being like, we don't have her for next week, so we don't want to get people's hopes up. I don't know. But things are getting really bizarre at this point. And again, Meltzer's saying it's not going to be her, it's not going to be her. But at the same time, he's saying that he hasn't openly been told by maybe top sources that, oh, we've had to do this because of that. It sounds very speculative on his point. So you let me know what you think. Is Mercedes Mone coming into AEW? Is this a red herring? Is this a red flag? Is Meltzer trying to work people? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, the Young Bucks, what's their AEW future look like? Well, according to Sean Rossap of Fightful Select, they are in negotiations to renew their AEW contracts. Of course, the Young Bucks helped start All Elite Wrestling, and it looks like they're going to be around for quite some time. Fightful Select is reporting that Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, have been in discussions with All Elite Wrestling about new contracts. Now, they don't have details, terms, or know if they've even been signed, but them being in discussions has made its way through the locker room. The nature and length of All Elite Wrestling contracts has been the subject of much confusion based on initial reporting. When they started, what the subjects themselves have said, the Wrestling Observer had originally reported in January of 2019 that Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks had all signed 5-year contracts. But of course, Cody Rhodes left after 3 years in early 2022. On the October 7, 2019 episode of Being the Elite, the contracts were described as 4-year deals and no other details were provided. Fightful Select are reporting that they had heard from several sources in AEW that the Young Bucks have been discussing new contracts with the company that could keep them around for quite some time. But as of now, there aren't any details on terms or if the deal has been reached. Fightful did say they reached out to AEW, but as is part of the course of this kind of stuff, they didn't hear anything. Now, Dave Meltzer, once again, of the Wrestling Observer, has stepped in with a report of his own, and again, this would be probably more official. This one does have more weight to it because, of course, we know Meltzer does talk directly to Matt and Nick Jackson themselves and Tony Khan, and I'm sure he would get an answer for a subject like this. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Meltzer explained, quote, their contract is up at the end of the year, and if AEW does want to lock them in. AEW contacted them and wants to start negotiations, but there have been no negotiations as of today, and they're certainly not close to a deal. Right now, that's where it's at. It's similar to when we talked about a couple of months ago with Jericho. Jericho had some time left, but they signed him to a new deal. They have not started negotiations yet, but AEW has contacted them saying they want to sign them to a new deal, a multi-year deal. So that's where the Young Bucks story is at right now. So essentially, Sean Rossap saying that negotiations have started. Dave Meltzer saying, well, that's a bit too far actually. It's more been AEW contacting the Young Bucks saying, we want to start negotiating now, but certainly pen hasn't been put to paper and negotiations really haven't even started. So to say that the Young Bucks are locked in, that's not necessarily the case as of right now. And as I mentioned, their deals are up at the end of this year, that being 2023. So there's still plenty of time there, but AEW wants to start negotiations. Last night was a new version of AEW Dynamite, and it finished with a championship change. Darby Allin reclaimed the AEW TNT Championship from Samoa Joe during the first Dynamite of 2023 in his hometown of Seattle, Washington. Allin's chances of dethroning Samoa Joe seemed bleak after he hurt his knee diving off a ladder in the early stages of the match. Thereafter, Joe targeted Allin's knee and dominated most of the match. However, Allin persevered and hit 2 timely coffin drops for the pinfall victory. After the match, the Icon Sting came down to the ring to celebrate with his pupil as the Seattle crowd showered them with loud cheers. Allin had previously held the TNT Championship for a record 186 days until he lost the title to Miro in May of 2021. Following that loss, Allin received several shots at reclaiming the title against the likes of Sammy Guevara and Samoa Joe, only to come up short. Meanwhile, Joe held the title for less than 50 days following his victory over Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs at last November's Full Gear pay-per-view. Prior to Wednesday's match, Joe had successfully defended the title against the likes of AR Fox, Allin himself, and Wardlow. Joe, as a dual champion, has also defended these Ring of Honor World Television Championship during the same time frame. I was a bit sad to see Joe drop the championship so quickly. I felt that he hadn't even really hit his stride as the champion, and once again, the TNT Championship continues to get bounced around from person to person with these short title reigns. I understand first Dynamite of the year, hometown crowd, but I just felt there was more juice to get out of the Samoa Joe TNT Championship reign. And if it's Darby Allin now, hold on to the championship for a while. I don't want to see all of these changes, but this feels like the title that gets shopped around quite a bit. AEW Revolution is going to feature what I think could be an absolute classic main event. Bryan Danielson is set to challenge Maxwell Jacob Friedman for the AEW World Championship at the Revolution pay-per-view on March 5th. After his match against Tony Nese on last night's edition of Dynamite, Danielson challenged the champion to a title match, but in classic MJF fashion, there's a catch. Danielson will have to win a match every week between now and February 8th. If he can do that, Danielson will get his title match under his hand-picked stipulation, a 60-minute Iron Man match. The ongoing feud between MJF and Danielson started on the Winter is Coming episode of Dynamite on December 14. MJF successfully defended his championship and the Dynamite Diamond Ring in the main event of the show against Absolute Ricky Starks. While walking up the ramp after the match, MJF was promptly confronted and chased back down the ramp into the crowd by Danielson. Much to MJF's chagrin, the ensuing image spawned a new piece of AEW merchandise emblazoned with the image of him scurrying away from Danielson. MJF's displeasure with the image hasn't slowed down its popularity. AEW star Lee Moriarty even contemplated the idea of having it commissioned as an oil painting. So over the following weeks, Danielson was confronted by the firm on behalf of MJF and promptly called Vegetable Man. The next week, Danielson had a match of All Ego Ethan Page, while MJF watched from a luxury skybox in the arena. Despite the firm's best efforts, Danielson ultimately came out on top, and of course, this all stems from MJF's betrayal and attack on Bryan Danielson's mentor, William Regal, but it looks like we're getting a 60-minute Iron Man match at AEW Revolution. That could be very, very, very special. And of course, the match is going to happen, despite all of these matches that Danielson has to wrestle between now and February 8th. The match is going to happen, and I'm very excited to see it. Controversy surrounds the tag team championships in AEW. Jeff Jarrett, 55, nearly became the oldest title holder in AEW history during last night's Dynamite, where he and Jay Lethal were temporarily declared the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. The controversial finish saw Lethal initially covering Anthony Bowens for a pinfall victory after Sonjay Dutt removed Bowens' foot from the ropes. Thereafter, AEW officials examined replays of the finish, leading Aubrey Edwards to reverse the decision. Once the match was restarted, the Acclaimed were able to do the needful to retain their titles. Later on in the show, an irate Jarrett and Lethal vowed to dethrone the Acclaimed's reign as champions. Subsequently, it was announced that Jarrett and Lethal would receive a rematch, this time under no-holds-barred rules, at Friday's Battle of the Bouts 5, the 5th edition of the AEW television special, which will emanate live from the Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Portland, Oregon. So because of the controversy, we're getting a match at Battle of the Bouts, and it's an attempt to make people watch that show live. I mean, I have no interest really in seeing Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal as the tag team champions, although, to be fair, the match was pretty good last night, and it didn't feature, would you know it, any receipts from all of that social media drama. Who would have thought it? Speaking of matches announced, and a match has been announced for next week's Dynamite. It's the match we expect. Former AEW World Champion Hangman Adam Page will return to the ring next week for the first time since suffering a concussion on October 18th. In a face-to-face promo segment with Jon Moxley last night on Dynamite, Page confirmed he's been cleared by doctors to return to the ring for an action next week in Los Angeles, California. Easy for me to say. Page would also highlight the fact he suffered a concussion in an AEW World Championship match against Moxley in the latter's hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. Quote, "You think I'm mad at you because you knocked me out?" Page asked Moxley. "I wish this wasn't true, but I've been knocked out more times than I can count. I've been knocked out by enemies, strangers, and even my best friends. It's an unfortunate part of what we do, and I could never be mad at you for that. You don't seem like a guy for nuance, so I'll put it this way. What I'm angry about you is calling me out and not even allowing me to get a word in. Instead, you make a joke about my concussion. You nearly took my career from me and you want to crack a joke about it? I think I know why, Mox. It's because you feel threatened in the moment." Page ended the promo by noting he's had 1 month to stew on Moxley's wisecrack about his concussion and another 2 months to stew on the lariat that knocked him out cold. In response, Moxley seemingly vowed to knock Page out once again. Quote, "The only joke around here is you thinking next time it's going to be any different," Moxley stressed. "Your little punk ass doesn't belong in the ring with me, and next week I'm going to make sure this time you don't get back up." What I will say about Hangman's promo, very, very CM Punk reference, I thought. Now, that could just be me. Him saying, "You made a wisecrack, I've had a month to stew on it, 2 months to stew on it, that's what bothered me." Sounds a bit similar to his rivalry of CM Punk, doesn't it? Ricky Starks defeated Chris Jericho last night in the first match of 2023 on Dynamite, and it featured a post-match beatdown that wasn't pretty good. Now, as I mentioned, Jericho and Starks battled it out in the first AEW match of the year, and the Seattle crowd were hot for it. In the end, Starks fought off 2.0 at ringside, pinning Jericho with a spear to win the match. Starks was assaulted by the rest of the Jericho Appreciation Society before Action Andretti ran out of a steel chair to make the save. The JAS then turned the tides again on Andretti and Starks, with Jericho taking them out with a steel chair. Jake Hager then powerbombed Starks through the table at ringside, so it would appear, despite Starks getting the victory, they are building to a future match. Whether they can stretch this out to Revolution, I don't know, but it was the right move for Starks to get the win last night. History has been made. Yes, history has been made in New Japan Pro Wrestling because it's been made at New Japan's New Year Dash event. For the first time ever, longtime rivals Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada teamed at New Japan New Year Dash. The two New Japan legends were victorious over United Empire members Jeff Cobb and Aaron Henare in the main event. The finish saw Omega and Okada hit a V-trigger Rainmaker combination on Henare, followed by Okada hitting a proper Rainmaker on Henare for the pinfall victory. New Japan New Year Dash was a mystery event with matches being official as entrances were made. Cobb and Henare entered first, followed by Omega. The crowd was stunned when they heard the familiar coin drop once Omega entered the ring, signifying that Omega and Okada would be teaming and working together. Omega and Okada had nights to remember at Wrestle Kingdom 17, with Omega defeating Will Ospreay to win the IWGP US Heavyweight Championship and Okada defeating Jay White to win the IWGP World Heavyweight Championships. Of course, Omega and Okada will forever be linked thanks to their series of matches that helped take New Japan to new heights as a promotion. The two men first battled at New Japan Wrestle Kingdom 11 and went on to have 3 more matches against each other, including a 2 out of 3 falls match at New Japan Dominion in 2018, which is the last match as opponents. Another match could be happening in the future. Who knows when it will indeed happen. Omega, of course, sporting a black eye. He's fine. There was a bit of concern for him after the Wrestle Kingdom event about his injury, but he's completely fine, as can be seen with his match today at New Year's Dash. Finally, Dynamite last night featured a new set, a new look. AEW Dynamite. It debuted its new look last night on TBS. The company unveiled its new set, as can be seen in the picture just on the screen right there. The new set has a new set of entrance doors, replacing the tunnels that have been part of the previous set's trademark look. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, what you think about it. I've seen criticism of some of the production last night, saying it's too WWE, saying that set's too familiar to WWE, it's just a big LED screen, and I think that's fair. I live for the day, and maybe it's because that's what I grew up on, but I grew up on custom sets. I grew up on custom sets for Raw, for SmackDown, for pay-per-views. I mean, pay-per-view custom sets were they were the best. You know, the Backlash spikes, or the SummerSlam Big S, or, you know, even like Judgment Day, or whatever it may be. You know, I'm a Bad Blood, a giant blood thing. Like that's what I like. And I understand that it's 2023 and everything's got to be LED, but I can understand the criticism of saying this was a bit too WWE. I think that's fair, but ultimately what really matters is the product. This is all window dressing. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about that. But there you go, guys. It's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.